Hey everyone, Mr. G here. In this section, we're going to talk about iterables, which is a construct that most programming languages have, Python being no different. We're going to talk about some of the iterables that Python has and how we can use them to our advantage. Right here, I have a repo called Iterable Collections that I've made. As usual, the link will be in the description. You can go and copy the repository if you want to be able to play around with it yourself. But for now, I'm going to copy the code here so that we can go into Visual Studio and clone this repo. Give it a little bit of time to think. So let's do git clone. Okay. Now we can open it. Whoops. Meant to do iterable collections add. All right, so this is a pretty big one. We got a lot going on here. There's 4 folders. Well, you'll end up understanding what each of them are in a bit. But let's check out Iterables MD, which is going to be kind of our preview to all of this. So, oftentimes when we are programming, we don't want to store just one value at a time. We want to store many values, especially, that's one of the main uses of computers. It can work with a lot of information at once. So we call this idea of a data structure that holds multiple things at once an iterable. So some of the basic ideas, it's a collection of objects that can be accessed one at a time. We can iterate over it to get each object. This is where the name iterable comes from. They're not necessarily going to support indices or indexing where we can assign an index to each element. We might not be able to call for a specific object without calling for all objects. They might not support length. And we might not be able to ask for the number of objects. There's a lot of might nots there. And that's because there's a really wide range of types of iterables in terms of what they're capable of. And so some of them do some of these things, some of them do all of these things, some of them do none of these things. So as a reference point, the strings we've been working with is already a specialized kind of iterable because Python really views it as a collection of characters. And each character is assigned to an index to maintain the order. And we'll end up seeing that strings interact very nicely with these other iterables due to the fact that it already is one. So a subset of iterables that we use often is called sequences. So all sequences are iterables. Oftentimes they have more functionality. The added functionality is that they're guaranteed to have indices and indexing and a length. You can still iterate over them to get each object, hence they're still an iterable. And there's 2 types. There's mutable and immutable. So mutable, coming from the word mutate, can be modified, can be changed after creation. Immutable cannot be modified after creation. Though we'll see in an example, they could be replaced, but they can't be modified. So there's 4 types of iterables we're going to cover in this section. Tuples, which are an immutable sequence. Lists, which are an immutable sequence. And then sets and dictionaries, which are both more general iterables. So this is the order we're going to go through things: tuples, lists, sets, and dictionaries. Because they each offer some different things, and we'll kind of build up to get to dictionaries at the end. So I have a table here which kind of displays some information about these different types of iterables we're talking about. So first of all, their names. So set, and some of them have abbreviated names, especially dictionary being a long name, is abbreviated to DICT, dict, in terms of the coding. So we have set, dict, list, and tuple. So set uses curly braces. You also notice dict also use curly braces, and there's a colon here, which is something we're going to get into when we get to the dictionary section. A list uses square brackets, and a tuple uses parentheses or round brackets. So are they ordered? Most of them are, but sets are not. Sets are not ordered. Are they indexed? Sets are not. Dictionaries have something called keys that we're going to get into. Lists and tuples are indexed. You can use index to get elements. Can you change individual elements? Sets and tuples you cannot, while dictionaries and lists you can. Can you add or remove elements? In sets, dictionaries, and lists you can add or remove. In tuples they're restricted. You can't add or remove. Are there duplicate members allowed? In sets, you cannot have duplicate members. In dictionaries, we have this idea of a key and a value. The keys cannot be duplicates, but the values could be. And in lists and tuples, you can have as many duplicates as you need. What types can the elements be? So in a set, list, or tuple, the elements could be any type: an integer, a float, a string, a boolean, another object. We're going to end up learning about a lot of those throughout this year. The keys, though, in a dictionary need to be immutable types. So the easy way to think about it is your original 4 types. Int, float, boolean, string are really concrete immutable types. And then can you mix immutable types? Can you mix element types? Can you have different elements or different element types in the same iterable? And the answer for pretty much all of these is yes. So we can mix and match. If you need to have integers and floats together, that's fine. And I have some extra definitions down here if you need to read through these. But we're going to go through each of these. Again, the order, we're going to do tuple, list, set, and then dictionary. So in the next video, we're going to start talking about tuples.